I never thought I'd become one of those YouTubers who focus on a single console and barely anything else. It always felt so restrictive. And I'm still not that. I have plenty of videos in the works that have nothing to do with button phones. But at the same time, I have such a weird fascination for this platform. It's so limited and so cash grabby even back then that games just kinda have to be either bad or mindless arcade games. But many aren't. There are plenty of story-based games out there, and a lot of them are really interesting, like God of War Betrayal, a really polished game that's canon but often forgotten. But the thought of a survival horror game on this platform never even crossed my mind until recently. Like, how's that even supposed to work? In my Silent Hill video, I said, this mobile game actually tries to be survival horror. Though of course that wouldn't be possible on a platform this limited, so it's a first-person point-and-click adventure instead, because I couldn't fathom anything else. But I have since been proven wrong by Resident Evil Confidential Report and Genesis. Two very different and very interesting approaches at the genre, one being turn-based and the other an actual demake of the first Resident Evil game, and they both work surprisingly well. It fascinates me that this platform might actually be a viable way of experiencing even more survival horror. Completely original games that are long forgotten because button phones were never seen as a gaming platform. Not even video essayists who focus on the weirdest and most obscure games on just about every platform seem to pay any attention to this one. Which made me even more curious. Are there any other survival horror games on here? And if so, are they any good? Surprisingly, I came across a bunch of names during my research, and I want to check all of them out eventually, but one seemed to get mentioned the most. Seems to be the most popular one, I guess, so let's check it out. I'm Jen, and this is Darkest Fear, a button phone exclusive trilogy. That is fascinating, because the Resident Evil and Silent Hill games at least had brand recognition, but Darkest Fear is completely original to this platform. As far as I can tell, it came out of nowhere, gave us 3 games in 2 years, and disappeared, never to be heard of again. So I played them, and noticed that the first game isn't even survival horror. It's actually just a dark, creepy puzzle game. Well, as creepy as button phone games can probably get, I guess. Or maybe not even that. So let's quickly go over it to get an understanding of the story and mechanics, and then move on to the main course. You play as a man who gets a call from his nurse wife saying that their daughter went missing in the hospital, and the 15 short levels are the different areas and floors of that hospital. Your goal is usually to get to the other side of each level, but monsters hide in the darkness, so you have to stay in the light by opening windows, picking up lamps, placing mirrors, and so on. There are a bunch of different ways to make light that work together really well and actually make the later levels kinda challenging. They were never too hard, but always enough to think about. That was nice, because I expected it to be super easy after seeing that it's just individual levels, and again, considering the platform. The only thing I can really criticize here is the tutorial. It didn't tell me everything, so I had to figure out some things with trial and error, dying a bunch of times in the process. The levels are small though, so it's pretty forgiving. It was just kinda annoying. Story-wise, this game has more to offer than you'd think. It's genuinely interesting, albeit pretty predictable once you get your first hint at what's going on. But I liked it. And, spoiler warning, skip to this timecode if you don't want to know anything, turns out the creatures are actually people who were turned into these monsters by the doctors. We also get bitten later on, and of course I chose to use one of the 2 antidotes on myself, but the other people you can choose to save are the little sister of the girl who gave you the antidotes and your own daughter. In this order, in different levels. Good luck. And there are also little side stories, like the one about a lost daughter, where seeing her dad cling onto his dead child actually kinda made me sad. And other little bits of story that contribute to the overall lore, like when you reach the really messed up area with cages and stuff, and the doctor tells you he had no idea. These details are more than I would have expected from this game, and never fail to hit a little. We even have a child explain to us how the children in the hospital were experimented on and tortured, and ask us to save all of them. It's optional, but holy shit, I kinda had to, even if I hadn't gone for 100%. I mean, look at this level. It's full of cages with children in them, more than there are beds. It's kinda sickening. Imagine this in a full 3D game. Most levels here have a few people you can save by having them in the light, but it only gives you more maximum health. It's never part of the story like it is here, and damn. We then find out that our wife is behind all of this, and she's holding our daughter hostage. At which point I'm asking myself why she called us in the first place. She was trying to find a cure for her daughter's disease, and is now trying to save her one last time by injecting something into her that obviously turns her into the final boss who chomps off her head. Good job. There are 3 bosses, by the way, and the first 2 work the same, which is lazy, but at least the second one looks incredible. I love the design on it. And after defeating the last one, which of course works differently, and that was nice, you get one of 3 endings, depending on who you decided to save with the antidotes. It's an interesting game. It kinda disappointed me at first by not being survival horror after reading that it's supposed to be, but on its own I liked it, and might replay it sometime down the line. It's a nice, dark puzzle game with good music, smooth but a little slow gameplay, and an interesting depiction of autism, where people on the spectrum apparently can't recognize faces. But what we're actually here for is the second one, Darkest Fear Grim Oak. So let's get into it. It takes place 5 years later in the city Grim Oak, in which the local monastery apparently financed the experiments from the first game and took all the patients into quarantine while telling the citizens that it's actually a dangerous and contagious disease. But all the patients died from it by now and it spread into the city. Of course our protagonist knows that it's BS, that it was human testing, but nobody believes him to the point of him passing out? Only to wake up alone in this building. I love how it builds upon the first game's story. Of course, the way we get into the game itself is a little weird, but the way the overall story is structured kinda reminds me of Resident Evil, where the first game takes place in a mansion and we figure out that there is more behind the zombie attacks than just the zombie attacks. And then in the second game we see a bit of the bigger picture, with the city also being overrun by zombies. In Darkest Fear it was just the hospital at first, and now we see how these events affect the city as a whole. It's a great way of increasing the scale while staying true to the original. And we get a proper tutorial this time, and items are highlighted. The UI got an overhaul too, and movement is faster. The entire game feels even better to play than the first one. We also get introduced to many of the concepts from the first game, like the monsters, which now look scarier, and how you can light areas up, including an all-new mechanic for that. And once we find our way out of this place, we see that we can actually go outside! No individual levels in this game. It really is the open town that you can explore more or less freely, with a map, key items, notes, an inventory, puzzles, both the light-based ones from the first game and the typical survival horror ones with locked doors and poems and whatnot, and anything else you would expect. This is a real, true survival horror game that is exclusive to this platform. And I still can't believe it. You can't imagine the smile on my face when I first saw this screen. We find out that the monks developed a medicine for the disease. I mean, obviously, we gave the antidote to 2 people in the first game. So our goal now is to get that medicine, as well as the 6 keys needed to enter their hidden monastery. You get them from the Guardians, one of which is your dead ex-wife, and we find out that the patients are apparently still alive. Well, except the ones I killed in the first game, I guess. Thanks for making me feel bad about that. And on top of that, not everyone here is brainwashed by what the monks are saying. Some people are actually normal and help us. Or mistake us for the monks' henchmen, so we have to kill them. That was brutal. But that's not all. Apparently the monks also use dead bodies for something. And while I would love to know what, staying in the morgue for too long will get us caught and killed. Clearly you have to do something else first. But what is that? So here too, it really is like a survival horror game where you have to figure out where to go and what to do next. How to uncover this mystery and eventually, hopefully, how to be able to stay in the morgue without getting killed. There are no bigger sub-areas in this game, like Resident Evil's police station or Silent Hill's hospitals. Plural. At least 4 of them. It's really just a city, with the houses being sort of light-based levels like in the first game, with their own sets of puzzles and key items you can find. A cool addition here, by the way, is the camera that you can use as long as you have batteries, to create a short flash. Doesn't make much sense that we get the batteries by unlocking doors, or that we can't take flashlights or lamps out of buildings, or that this building has the doors on the same side outside but not inside? But they still link to the doors? But I'll take what I can get, I guess. You can also unlock infinite batteries for future playthroughs by getting all the collectibles, and there are even minigames. I was pretty thorough and found 2, but maybe there are more. I tend to miss stuff. In terms of difficulty, it's fine, I guess. There were some moments where I had to think for a bit, especially during a really cool boss fight, and I even got stuck once, even though the solution was pretty simple, but for the most part it's about as hard as I wanted it to be, which is hard to explain with words, but take me as your average survival horror fan. It wasn't super hard for me, but made me think sometimes. Good. Good. And much like in the first game, trial and error is no issue in the buildings, because you always respawn in front of them, so you can't lose a bunch of progress or anything. Speaking of average survival horror, can you imagine how happy it made me to see this electric 4-digit lock on the door? Or this text saying the door is locked from the other side? I just can't help but love details like these. Probably because I didn't expect them here. Because they are your average survival horror staples. But this game is so small and simple, but still manages to have a surprising amount of detail. I don't want to say it's super deep or anything, but look at it. You wouldn't expect it to have any depth at all, but it has so much more to offer than you would think that I can't help but be happy that it even exists, regardless of its downsides. Is it perfect? Of course not. Especially the ending really disappointed me, in which, spoiler, skip to this timecode if you care, turns out the monks are actually shadow creatures? Which is cool, but raises questions that are never answered. We then go to the monastery where we find our daughter, who is now scared of light, so she's probably not human for much longer. Also really cool. And the story will be concluded in the third game. Yeah, this one ends on the most blatant and downright insulting cliffhanger ever. And the monastery as a location was also really underwhelming. This is all there is to it. But I just can't help it. I have a huge weakness for survival horror, and this is just that. The best version of the genre that I've played on this platform yet, and I have a hard time believing that there are any better ones. This is peak button phone survival horror, and I really liked it. Would I recommend it to fans of survival horror? Honestly, only if you're into the 2D stuff. But if you are and want to be blown away by a short hour and 20-minute experience that, again, came out on this thing and this thing only, please give it a shot. It's genuinely impressive what they were able to do here without the kind of brand power that Resident Evil and Silent Hill had. So, understandably, I was curious, even a little hyped for the third one. Would Darkest Fear Nightmare improve even more? The short answer is no, because it's not a survival horror game anymore. No map, inventory, key items, nothing. It went back to the first game's formula, but added a bunch of stuff. That's not bad, and this game is still fun. It's just a huge step down for me. It is, again, a light-based puzzle game with 13 levels, a few cutscenes, and a secret ending that I wasn't able to unlock or even find gameplay of. To see it, you have to find all the collectibles, but I went through every level multiple times, which is why my playtime is, and couldn't find the last two. This game picks up right after the second one, where you are normal but your daughter is infected, and you have to find medicine for her. This creates some super interesting gameplay where, like the monks explained to us, I love being immersed in the world. You control both characters. One can only stay in the light, and one only in the darkness. And they have to work together to make it to the exit of each level. There is also a new light mechanic introduced, and some completely new mechanics for the daughter. She unlocks monster skills throughout the game, which not only help us with the puzzles going forward, but also allow us to open up small areas with collectibles in previous levels. So you can go back and get all of them if you want to. It's just a shame that they are pages of a history book that you can't read. Or maybe you can if you collect them all, but I wasn't able to. Like, if you call your collectible page of a history book, at least let me read it, come on. And not only did I not get any lore from these pages, the game itself barely has any story either. It's mostly just flavor text between many of the levels, not even all of them. And the little bits of story that we do get can get pretty weird too. Monks are now apparently the good guys for no reason and want to find the antidote too. You know, the one that they themselves developed according to the second game? But then on top of that, that plot point goes nowhere. It's just forgotten. And the very end also makes no sense. Skip to this timecode if you don't want to hear it. You find the antidote and save the day, also curing your daughter's autism? But nobody believes the protagonist's story and he becomes a laughingstock. I like that approach of not everything being great just because he saved his daughter, but then he gets a phone call from his wife who tells him that their daughter went missing in the hospital, just like in the first game, creating a time loop, I think. But our wife only started experimenting on the children to cure her daughter, which we did in this game. We even cured her autism, which was apparently a problem or something. She's healthy in every conceivable way as far as I can tell, so there is no reason for her mother to try and heal her. This ending is ambitious, but it makes no sense. I don't know why they decided to get rid of most of the story and drop the ball on the ending. Were they just rushing it to focus on other projects? It kind of feels that way. Also with other underwhelming things, like how all the text is just on top of the environment with no background or anything. How you can't go to the level selection unless you die or restart the game, which made looking for collectible a bit of a pain. How, because of that, your picked up collectibles only get saved if you die or complete the level, and the entire final boss fight. Many things just feel kinda rushed. And I'm choosing my words carefully here. This is not amateurish. Many things about this game show real skill and passion, like the creative first two boss fights, hidden minigames, or at least I found one, the puzzles which really make you think later on. It's never too hard, but I did die sometimes. And the visual aspects, like the cinematic intro, reflections in the water, and the final boss environment. These people knew what they were doing, and they proved it, at the very least with the first two games. And they tried to innovate once more. Successfully so, I have to say. This is a fun game, but some things felt rushed and just left a bitter taste. It's weird. I want to like the game, and in a way I do. It's the most creative out of the three, but it's also the one I would want to replay the least, and I don't even know why. I'm kinda torn on it. The gameplay is as polished as ever, but coming after the really strong second one, and even compared to the first one, it's just a letdown with an unsatisfying ending. Yet still, I would have liked to see more. I like the core concept of these games, and more is always nice. But I also understand that the studio wanted to move on to different projects. It's just a shame that, as far as I know, they never made any other survival horror games, because they really had a talent for it. They ported the first Darkest Fear game to iOS 4 years after it first released and 3 years after the last one, so they still remembered about it, but they became wildly successful with another game just a few months later, Angry Birds. Yes, that is the studio behind Darkest Fear. And ever since their cash cow dropped, they rarely made anything else, and whenever they did, it was always in this child-friendly style, probably hoping to get another massive success. Though, looking at their release games, it's pretty obvious how they're making a living. And sadly, Darkest Fear was forgotten in the process. The second and third games were never even ported, and it's been 16 years since the first one was. Hoping for a revival is pointless at this point, and honestly, I'm not sure how it would even work if they tried. Gameplay like this isn't popular on smartphones, especially the first and third games would have a really hard time. But I can see some indie devs remastering the second one and putting it out on Steam. Survival horror has a second golden era right now, with games coming out left and right, and I'm sure some people would be interested in a short, cheap, and pretty good 2D one. Expand it a little to give context from the first game, give it a proper ending, and put it out for a few bucks. It might not be crazy successful, but at least a new audience could find it this way, and it would help preserve it. I'm serious when I say, if I knew how to, I'd ask Rovio to do it myself. But sadly I don't. And honestly, I don't see much hope for this ever happening. It's mostly just a wish. But who knows, maybe someone sees this and gets inspired. Anyway, let's stop my rambling. Thank you so much for watching. I'm planning to check out more button phone survival horror games eventually, but for now I want to move on to different projects. I'm working on a pretty big video, my longest one yet, about the entire history of a long-running horror movie franchise. Takes a while to create, but the script is pretty much done by now. It will be my next one. Subscribe to not miss it. Until then, feel free to check out my other videos I mentioned in this one, and my Twitch stream. All links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, have a nice day, night, whatever, and goodbye.